So, like we were just talking about, this should be continuous integration for Acquia using CircleCI. If I'm in the wrong room, let me know, because it's not happened before, but it's a possibility. I just want to give a little bit of background about this presentation. I work for 4 Kitchens. We do a lot of heavy development in Drupal projects and with continuous integration. We have very opinionated folks all over the spectrum as far as continuous integration is concerned, but we've all kind of gathered around one platform, and that's CircleCI. We found that the easiest to use, the most flexible, and the cheapest. So just to give you an idea, that's part of the reason why I'm speaking on CircleCI, and I want to talk about that here in a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of a feel about myself. I don't know if any of y'all seen me speak before, but I do Midwest generally. The black tie and suit affair doesn't suit me too well, as you can tell. I'm the man in the overalls. I go by the name General Redneck. You pretty much see me anywhere online as General Redneck. Go to Drupal, go to the Twitters or the Facebooks, and you'll be able to find me there, General Redneck. Just your standard good old country boy. I am the technical lead of the support department at 4 Kitchens. I've got so many years of PHP under my belt. We're not going to go there for right now. But 4 Kitchens, we're about making content go. And I know that's a kind of a buzzword, but we like to strategize and talk to our clients about their content. If you didn't see Todd Ross's talk, The Future of CMS, this morning, I suggest you go hit it up on YouTube. It verbalizes pretty much how we feel about content and how it should serve our clients. Mostly I work with like media publishing companies, some education nonprofit, and we have something like 18 clients on our support side right now, which encompasses over 45 websites. That's just support. We do new builds as well as API development and app development for like Roku. So that's the little spill about 4 Kitchens. Now I want to hear a little bit from y'all. What CI systems, continuous integration systems, do you use? And what makes you interested in a CircleCI talk?
We use Provo for our continuous integration solution. I'm interested in CircleCI because Acquia uses it, and we just got a contract with that utilizes Acquia.
Interesting.
Well, Acquia is one of the only FedRAMP compliant hosts that kind of deals and lives in the Drupal space.
Yeah, Acquia, in my experience, actually has used quite a bit of Travis CI in the past. That's really encouraging to hear that they're going.
When I saw the title said Acquia and CircleCI.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I talk about it is because it's not out of the box. How many of you know what BLT is? That's what I figured. So BLT, Travis, out of the box. There's no Circle integration right now, and that's something that would be really interesting. Now, to give you a little bit of background about this, my solution is not BLT, not based on BLT, for one very important reason. I do a lot of Drupal 7 work. BLT does not work for Drupal 7. It's a Drupal 8. Now, moving forward, I totally expect to go that direction, but unfortunately, you will not see BLT in this solution because it's supposed to be generic enough to be able to use for both workflows. I also want to point out that I have a bias where I use a lot of the same conventions that Greg Anderson over at Pantheon uses, because I base a lot of my workflow off of their models. We do a lot of multi-dev work. And I wish I could get that far with Acquia, but we haven't had quite the same partnership. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit philosophical / about the workflow currently, to get us in the right mind frame so that I can show you what we're trying to achieve, and then I want to show you code. I like to kind of split it up so that you get a good idea of the words that are going into what I'm going to be using to be able to describe this workflow, and then we start looking at code and we match them up. So first I want to talk about the requirements of what it takes to make our continuous integration workflow work. If you've heard me talk before, continuous integration is a practice, a religion. It's about how you can get your code working with other people's code continuously and easily. It's made for teams of developers, but this is the requirements that we need to be able to get there. The use of a source and artifact repo system were comparable. Who knows the difference between source and artifact repositories? Okay, we got a few in the room. Just a kind of a quick one-liner about it. Source is what you check in, what you do pull requests against, that do not have all of the things built out that you need to have a complete working site. Example, Drupal 8. You have a composer.json file. That is meant to be in your source repository. When you hit composer install, you get a whole bunch of modules, libraries, etc. Those go into your final product, which is your distribution or your artifact that you're going to release to the website. Acquia and Pantheon both work off of artifact builds. So you have to commit all those items to be able to host them. That's the difference. So in our case, whenever I'm talking about a source versus an artifact, it's literally which one are you reviewing in your code, your code reviews, and which one are you hosting out there on live. We need a develop branch. I like to use Git flow. So I say, let's have a develop branch. This is where the integration is going to happen. Okay, I'm building out features. We're merging features. They're going into develop branch until we decide we want to cut a release, usually on a sprint schedule. And then that goes, the whole time we're expecting that an environment out there somewhere is getting updated with these code changes. And then a master branch, which is the things that we are going to release. They are the things that it's the clean repository, the spick and span one. And then we need to back up the environment that we're going on and somehow link commits back to original source. So the last one, why is it a requirement? Why should we link an artifact commit to a source commit? How many people have ever had the challenge of, oh crap, the last release broke something. What broke it? And you go to the artifact repository and you say, oh, it just says in the commit message build assets. I don't know what commit that could have possibly come from. So you're trying to map that one to your source repository, and they do not share history or anything of that nature. It's a challenge. So let's call that a requirement. Also, this is a given. You may do it differently. I use Drush shell aliases to do local builds. You must have local builds to have continuous integration working, or at least scripts to be able to do this. So in my case, I have Drush fresh, Drush local, and Drush prod. The fresh is give me a new database, sanitize it, fresh start. kind of like production. Local is do everything you need to do to make it work on my local instance and let me be a developer. Devel, stage file proxy, those things. And Dress Prod is let me build this thing as if it's going to production, which is usually a subset of Dress Local. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is what are the artifact builds. I kind of got into this a little bit. Let's download our global dependencies to our artifact build. That's what the artifact build is going to contain. We also want to, whenever we do our artifact build, we want to grab the latest database so that we can test what deploying to Acquia is going to do. Okay, we want to build the site as if we're doing local development so that we can muck around with it if we need to. We need to run our tests. And we want to also make this continuous integration work on both the develop and master branches so that I can see the difference between the two. The last three things we want to check out the Acquia Git repo. These are all steps of things that are happening within our continuous integration, just to kind of clarify. And add all the assets that were built during testing. So whenever we want to push it to Acquia, we want to build all the assets. That means let's do composer install, let's do npm install, let's do gulp theme the things, let's do minimize your JavaScript. All that stuff they're assets that we want to build. And if we build them in continuous integration land, they're exactly the same. It's not like, oh Joe, I see you're using Node 8. I haven't gotten past Node 6 myself. Our assets are not lining up. If you do it in continuous integration land, everybody's requirements are the same. So that you will be able to tell when things will break. So, and then the last thing is commit and force push history to Acquia. That's what we'll want to do. Now, in Acquia, who here has heard of cloud hooks? All right, cool. Who uses them? Yeah, I figured that would be about the same people. So cloud hooks, for people who don't know what they are a way to perform actions on the production or on a Acquia site based on events that happen. So for instance, I update the code. I want a couple of things to happen. I want to back up my current environment, because let's say I push to production. What's your manual process? You drag the code over. Oh, before that, you already skipped a step. I did anyway, and that's part of the problem, right? I go to drag the code over, but then I remember, oh, I need to take a backup of this thing because otherwise I'm going to deploy this and it's going to break and then I can't go back. So I take a backup, then I drag my code over, then I get back on my command line and I run drush@, oh, what the heck is that dang site alias? I didn't get my site alias file downloaded, so I need to go do that. And these things are things that you have to do manually, which a computer can do like that. So the question is, why not have a hook do it? So this hook says, all right, I'm updating code. Let me go run this script. And I'll show you that here in a minute. It's really nice. Pantheon has something very similar, and they came out with it later. This is Acquia was ahead on their game here. Pantheon came out with the Quicksilver scripts. So if you have those. Cloud hooks are very nice. And we can change them based on the per environment too. So let's tie this all together.
Can you
Now,
go back to the previous slide, please?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Now these slides are also going to be available online very shortly after this, and there will be a YouTube recording of this presentation going up online, provided that there's no technical difficulties with audio or something. It's been known to happen in the past, but it should help you out. There's also a copy similar to this presentation from a year ago. A year ago, Circle 2.0 was just coming out. Like it was just a thing. So this presentation, you'll be able to get the assets for a Circle 2.0 deployment to Acquia and not a Circle 1.0. Because Circle 1.0 is being deprecated in 7 days, something like that. August 31st. I can't math right now. So let's tie it all together. So here's the thing. If you haven't ever seen Circle 2.0, let me get out of presentation mode really quick. If you haven't seen Circle, basically, like every other continuous integration, it comes out, I'm sorry, I'm switching back and forth really quick. I didn't have all my tabs set up. Here is a pull request, which I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with. You can go to GitHub and integrate your site with Circle 2.0 as easy as clicking a button, saying turn it on a hook. Then you'll get this, which is a based on what you added your configuration is a set of tasks that you've done that the builder will do for you. And in our case, we want it to build, test, and deploy for us. Deployment in this situation we're talking about is committing code to Acquia's repository. Okay? And then everything else is going to happen in Acquia land via hooks. And I'll kind of like walk you through the run times and how they happen as we talk about the code. So the first thing you need to do is get yourself a CircleCI account. Come over here to CircleCI and add your repository as a project. Let me get rid of those. And so when you add your repository as a project, the very first thing it's going to do is going to ask you, do you want to build? And it'll show you a list of jobs that it's already built. If it hasn't built anything, of course this will be blank, but you can see all these different commits that I've made on the different branches. Now you may be asking yourself, well, how do I make that happen? It's really simple. So CircleCI has support for a drop-in YAML format. Okay. You'll literally have to go to their website to learn more about how you can configure these to be specific to your build. However, this file, which I'll share with you online, you can copy and paste and throw into your project. Let me talk about some of the specifics of it really quick. In my README for this repository, which I'll share online for you, is some configuration that you'll need to do in CircleCI. Specifically, you'll need to know a couple of bits of information. Your Acquia user, your Acquia token, this is your email address for the user that you want to be your robot. Okay, we use an account called Bender, like Futurama robot, and then we get the Acquia token from the preferences inside your Acquia dashboard for that user. Now the canonical environment and stuff, as it says there, are all things that you can grab. I give you some helpful defaults, and this is all described in detail in Acquia's API documentation. But this is the base of the things we need to know to be able to do things like pull down backup of your database and to run a couple of jobs. And in this case, we then we need to know what your Acquia Git repository is, because we want to be able to push to deploy, and we also want to know who do you want to be committing as. Again, we use a fake user named Bender Kitchens, and we give it his email address, and that's so that we know, hey, this was an automated process that happened here, not actually Joe over here, because we want to blame the robot, not Joe, for things. So there's the start of this. Now, Circle 2.0 starts with a Docker image. Who's all into the Docker image phase these days? Any of y'all develop with Lando? I highly suggest it. It makes building your machines really quick and easy. We've had some growing pains with Drupal VM in the past, so that's why we went that direction. Lando is a little slower than your VMs, but it is for us, it's a very consistent way to build a local environment. Take a look at it. It's very beautiful. That's our catchphrase, by the way. Let's see. So I haven't found out a real good way to actually take a Lando container and push it up yet. That's on my to-do list. Now, at the end of this presentation, we can talk about things that still need to happen here, because there are some things that still need to happen here. So it's kind of cool. So let's start off with. So these are the things that I have for my project. So you can see here that I have a lot of this set up. Now what I didn't do, so I didn't show you what I put my token and stuff in the secure environment variables. So any of y'all that want to try to hack me, tough luck today. But you can call out some of this information here. I highly suggest that you don't put tokens in your source code, because this will be committed. And this is being recorded too, so I don't want my token out on YouTube. So here's the really easy gist of this. I know I'm going to be reading this nearly verbatim, but in case you have any questions of what's going on, first we're checking out the repository. That's our source repository from GitHub. Okay, so I made a commit. Now Circle says, oh, he made a commit. I need to build this machine and I'm going to check out the repository. All right, we checked it out. I'm going to do an npm install. I have some tools that are node-based that I want to use. Like, for instance, ESLint. Composer install. We all know Drupal 8 these days, you can't live without it. Most PHP applications you can. So now I run some linting, and I do it with Composer lint. So I say Composer lint. If you look at some of the, I can't talk and navigate today. If you look at some of the strategies people do, I don't know how many of y'all do this strategy, but Composer you can build commands with. So what I did is I've just created a quick command that will be used across every single one of my projects. So I use the same script. It doesn't matter what's in here, but the same CircleCI script runs for all of those. So it's all about uniformity and standardization and stuff that helps make you work best with your development teams across several projects. And support that's very, very important to us. So we'll do that. We'll lint. We have some code sniffing. We've got a couple other things going on. You might notice build assets up there as well. I know that's a really complicated command there. I'm running for build assets, but this is a very simple site. Just to kind of give you, it's a placeholder. So let me see. Actually, I'm moving along. So now so the idea was, if we went back to my other slide, is I'm going to import the database. I'm going to make sure go ahead.
Does this configuration file track in your code base, or are you copying this directly over to CircleCI?
This is going to be in your code base.
Okay, so similar to something like pipeline.
Yeah. So pipeline is very similar.
Okay.
Let me show you. So over here, I don't know if you can see off on this left-hand side, we have a .circleci folder. Inside of .circleci, we just put ourselves a config.yaml. We're good to go. These config files can be as simple as a couple of lines, as long as they have version 2 and a couple of steps to go on. So that's the basic of these. Now the rest of this, if you have any kind of bash knowledge at all, you can probably get the rest of this. I'm doing Drush Fresh, means I'm refreshing my database, building it like if I was on local. I'm running my build scripts, doing Drush local. I'm running my tests. In this case, my tests are, do I have a web page? Now this is a very verbose test. I suggest that y'all do something better than that. But in my case, I don't have anything like any of the testing suites or tools built in to be able to run like visual regression or whatnot. But that is perfectly capable of doing this here, as long as you have the browsers like Phantom.js or Google Chrome or something downloaded in here. That's something that you can add to this very easily. But this gets your server up and going for you so that can happen. So at that point, I check to see if my site's up and it's and it'll give me a web page back. Otherwise, it'll give me a 503 or 404 or whatever curl error where it just failed to build. And this is a good starting point. Linting is very important in our company because we believe in coding standards. It makes for a cleaner, more concise culture, and so that's why I also do that first, because it builds early. It'll fail early, and it'll skip out on doing this whole build stuff. Okay, so this stuff right up here on the build happens. Yes.
Where does the entire build process take place? Is it on Acquia?
It does not happen on Acquia. This happens on CircleCI's very tightly controlled containers.
Okay, so and this is SaaS?
What's that?
It's SaaS?
Software as a service, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing the composer builds and all that stuff on their own container?
Yeah, so I have a container that I built that was, let me look. You can use some of their pre-built defaults, or you can create your own, send it up there, and then in my case I created one for a specific version of PHP and Ubuntu. This is one of these areas where this could improve because I could use several containers put together so I could get the services I want. If you're a Docker fan, you probably know this. I just put together a really big, bloated, OS container together so that I wouldn't have to go and try to build an infrastructure. This is closer to, in my opinion, to what Acquia has than what Docker would provide in small containers. But I digress. So this all runs on CircleCI in a container, Docker container that will be destroyed after 10 minutes. Okay. That's where, like, if you were at one of the previous CI talks, they were talking about how it would be really nice if we had a environment somewhere, every PR, that someone could actually access and go test things. That's this right here. This particular build is not for that. This is for automated tests only.
If you're interested in that, come see us upstairs at the devshop.support table.
Exactly.
That's what we do.
You're one of two here today. So let's see. Next thing we want to talk about. So I need to kind of speed things up a little bit. Next thing I want to do is I want to deploy. Now, if you check out in my little configure and you get used to knowing what's going on in Circle, I have a build job and I have a deploy job. If you look up there, you notice that they kind of align. You have a build one and a deploy one. The deploy says only go when I'm pushing master, develop, or anything with release dash. Okay, and the whole idea of the deploy one is, all right, let's run all of the same build steps we did before. Then let's add Acquia as a remote. Okay, this goes into a little bit of philosophical debate about artifact repo and artifact commits. And some people don't like it one way or the other. I prefer artifact commits, and that is a commit that has where we've basically destroyed the get ignore and said just push all the things up there, and it maintains your history, so you're able to easily view between a build commit and the history that led up to it. And I can show you that really quick. This is my argument for having build artifact commits. I made this commit. I released that commit. I made that commit. I released that commit. Okay? And these are all the commits I made up to that release. If you were to look at an artifact repository, you would have seen that commit, the ones with the robots on it. Okay? And that would be it. So how do you know who did what to get to that release? It's very hard. So this is why I go the artifact commit route. Pantheon's default build on their example does the exact same thing, and I just recommend it. The worry you have to worry about here is somebody going to the Acquia repository, doing a git pull, and then merging in your artifact commits, because then you're bloating up your repo and so on and so forth. So now that I've kind of ranted on about what happens in CircleCI, let's actually kind of work through a workflow here. As a person who does git flow, it's kind of git flow, I should say. We usually put a ticket number for our branch so that we can easily relate what's going on. So I've created this ticket, this pull request that I'm doing. Now, just to kind of give you, let me get over here to Acquia and give you an idea of what's going down. Really? Oh. Un momento, por favor. See, I've got two. So let's go and check out CircleCI 2. So this is my application. As it's running today. This is the production application as it's running today. There's not a whole lot to it. I realize that. But let's say, as a feature, I want to change the search title. Okay? I want it to say, search the things, or search all the things. Okay? That is the request from my client. This is what they have currently. So on their production environment, so they can go in here and continue to do their content, etc. This is normal development stuff. What's going to happen for me here is I've got a setup here. I've got develop and master on these two environments. So any changes I make to develop, I expect to see here in dev. Any changes I make to master, I expect to see here in stage. That's the way we do. We can vet and make sure releases are happening, etc. We always want to test it right before we go to production on stage, and we want to always be able to test what state, broken or not, our code is in whenever it's integrated together. So that's how we do the flow here. Now we were talking about webhooks earlier, or cloud hooks earlier. So let's talk about this deploy. We've talked about this deploy process, and you notice that I said it literally just pushes to Acquia. That is our deploy. Okay. So at the point it gets here, it says, all right, I've built all the code. I'm going to push it to the Acquia repository. That's all we need. From then on out, if we have that branch checked out on the environment, CloudHooks takes over. It does all the builds that you need to happen on the environment on a reactive basis, so to speak. That way, if we're pushing to a branch that we don't have environment on, we're not wasting cycles, so to speak. And that's really the case, like with our release branches. You notice I put release that star. Say we have a third environment, which you can get through Acquia, or we have or we've changed stage from master to release or something of that nature. It will build on that whenever that happens. So CloudHooks, if you don't know what those are, let me get back to my code and let's take a quick look at our CloudHooks. Mine are a little special in the sense that they call other actions through the API. They're the hooks. So I have two, and they're common between each one of them. It's actually the same script, just symlinked. The whole idea is, okay, are there, again, security, there are tokens that you do not want to commit. There's a method you can do this by pushing directly to the file system on Acquia via SSH. Okay, and it's a folder or folders that they do not back up and are not stored in your code. In my case, it's called a folder called no backup. Okay, and I put a little script on there that says bash keys, and it contains two variables, Acquia user and Acquia token. And this is in the README on the code, so whenever you're following through on how that works, you can set this up really easily. So I'm calling this API, I'm logging in, I'm going over here, and then I'm making a database copy of production into my development environment. I'm sanitizing it, and then I'm also doing the same thing with files. Okay? And then, depending on whether I'm on dev, or if I'm on prod, or stage, or test rather, then I run either of these two commands. I either say run drush local, or I say run drush prod. Which those two commands are shell aliases. If you haven't ever used a shell alias before, it's a way to stick a whole bunch of commands within one single drush command. Okay? So that's basically what I've done. Drush local is drush updb, drush cer, drush cim -y, so on and so forth. All the things you would do manually every single time that you wanted to do some new development. And similar for drush prod. Just a little bit different because I want to do different configuration, for example. So it calls this. So what happens here is now is this gets called whenever code is pushed, which means it's updated, or I change the code base of an environment. So literally, to kind of put an idea around it, it happens when I go in here and change one of these radio buttons, or if the CircleCI deploy happens, which either happens on master or develop. That's what we're talking about. So this is the second runtime that kind of happens. So in my case, I want to go over here and do a pull request. I've got one started here. It's done just the build of the thing, and it should be done by now. Okay, I'm going to merge this pull request. If you want to see what the changes were on this, it's not that big of a deal. I changed some configuration to say search the things. Okay, that was a feature we asked for earlier. The next thing we need to do is, theoretically someone would come review my change, but I'm going to go cowboy and hit merge the thing. I know.
How dare you.
I'm a bad lead developer. Well, you know, if they really didn't want me to do that, they'd turn on that check on GitHub that says needs review. So, all right. Now you're probably wondering what's happening. you can't see what's happening from GitHub's point of view, but if you go to Circle, you'll notice that there's a develop task going on up there. I told you about all that configuration I did earlier and what was happening in that config file, and here's what it is. Right now it's build an environment, so it's going to go through, it's doing the Linux thing, building a Linux container, then it's going to go and do all those other commands that I told it to do. Right now it's actually checking out the code, doing npm install, so on and so forth. Okay, this is the point where we probably should answer some questions that you are doing, because this will take about 3 minutes. Any questions up to this point? It's a lot to, I know it's a lot to kind of pull in, and I want to show you something really quick. It's really easy because I have this right here. The README file. Documentation is totally overrated, but in this case, I show you what you can do. You can copy these configuration files, okay, and I tell you what files to copy up there into your project, okay. Then, in CircleCI, you add these environment variables that you need for your Acquia, that describe your Acquia site. These are very basic. It took me a little bit of reading through the documentation to originally come up with the list, because Acquia's documentation is scattered, say politely. So there's that. Then you need to add your SSH key for the user that you're using to do your deployment with. I highly suggest you pick up somebody or some account that is you consider a robot. Because it really sucks because it happens when people leave the company and you have to go redo all of your continuous integration setup because they were owned by that one person. That kind of stuff happens in real world. It's not something. This way we have one key for one user that we can change that's owned by the company. And then on Acquia, do the same thing. There's a couple more environment variables that you need to set, and here's this little B script that you can run when you get SSH'd into it. So SSH into your dev environment, test environment, and or prod environment. They all share the same file system, and go to each of the dev, test, and prod folders and add a script with your environment variables in it. And then after that, all you need to do is enable this project in CircleCI, and you'll start building. So if we just got done building over here, just to kind of give you an idea, these are the different tasks that we told it to do, and we can go look at our curl and see that we have a bunch of HTML spilled out that looks like Drupal. You can tell because there's a bunch of HTML spilled out and the word bar tick all over the place. So we got a good Drupal page. That was my lame test. At least it wasn't the troll face in ASCII art. I've seen that before as a test, so you know, it's a thing. And then over here we do our git commits and stuff. So notice I did I added the remote as the Acquia remote. Then I go here, fetch it, cut out part of the git ignore. So this is important. You'll see this in my git ignore file because I bash food this thing, and then we get rid of all the git folders underneath. And then we push it all up to Acquia. BLT does this exact same thing. It just does it in PHP world instead of bash land. So that's this is the same process, just different tools. BLT has a lot to offer, FYI. I'm not bashing it, punny. I'm not bashing it at all. I'm just saying that I needed a different workflow that works with Drupal 7. And this will, as long as you just change your drush local to not include Drupal 8 specific commands. And I'll show you just a little bit about that really quickly shortly. So this is our deploy. Now to kind of, I missed the chance for you to see this happen live, but if you take a look down here, let me refresh because this thing doesn't always pull up the latest immediately. If you take a look down here, you'll notice that we did a commit of this to develop. Then it said, all right, we're backing up the database for development, just in case somebody put in some data that was like, hey, I'm staging this for someone to view. I don't know. I'm going to make a backup just in case. And then I pull the database from prod, and pull the files from prod, and then we have an environment. So now if we go up here, in theory, we should have a new search bar. And now it says search the names. At this point, I push this to master, master will build, and then I come over here. You can do it through the API or you can do it through the interface and drag your code over, make a tag, okay? And that will tag a build asset on your repository, and you'll get something like this. So notice how I have this tag here for 2018-08-21 is pointing to that commit right there. Forever and ever. Alright guys, that builds an Acquia site using CircleCI, along with the several other tools that Acquia provides for you. Now, are you thoroughly confused? Alright, for those of you that are, be sure to come on by and talk with me later. I do have some places where you can get hold of me. Remember, if you're on Redneck, pretty much anywhere that you need to get hold of me. If you see me at any conference, the guy in the overalls. Thank you, Pete. Thank you guys for just sitting through here and listening to me ramble for a little bit.